Hello there, hope you're doing well. I was kindly tagged by Bob the Bookerer to do the mid-year freakout book tag. Yeah, that's right, isn't it? And it's, I'm not exactly sure what the freaking out part of the title refers to, but I'm going to take it to mean freaking out at the absolute interesting variety of books that I read since January. But yeah, no, I'm not freaking out really. I'm actually quite calm. So let's calmly proceed into the questions. Although, we don't know, maybe talking about these books will inspire passions. We'll have to wait and see. But number one, the best book you've read so far in 2001. So that's a no-brainer for me. That's Demons by Fyodor Dostoevsky, translated by Richard Pevear and Larissa Volokhonsky. And yeah, this book was, when I finished it, I knew I really loved it, but I also kind of didn't expect it to be like one of my all-time favorites or something like that. Didn't like the ending at all. There were loads of little things which felt really rough and didn't quite amount to a perfect reading experience. But even though I overall loved the book, and then, yeah, it's just stayed with me. It has stayed with me since I finished it in March, and I haven't had that kind of book hangover at all since I started reading again. So yeah, Demons. Number two, best sequel you've read so far in 2021. I have read two sequels so far in 2021. One is Oedipus at Kolonis, a Greek tragedy about an old man coming to terms with his own death, and sort of like the political forces that are trying to make him join their sides and so on. And that was written in around 400 BC or something like that. And the other one is a manga which is part of a series. I think it's like the 6th volume or something, The Drifting Classroom, which is about, it was written in the 60s, and it's about a whole school, which gets transported suddenly into the far future, and everything is an apocalyptic wasteland, and the kids are, of course, dying left, right, and center. There's quite a gap between those two. I like them both, but it's kind of really weird to judge, like, which did I like better between those two radically different things. I gave them both 4 stars on Goodreads, so I'm just gonna leave it at that, I think. Number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. Now, I normally don't know anything about new releases except for what I hear on Eric's channel, The Lonesome Reader, because he's always got such a load of great sounding books that are coming out or have just come out. One of these that recently stuck out in my mind was The Performance by Claire Thomas, and the synopsis is that it's in Australia during the terrible bushfires that happened recently in a town which is quite close to them, and the fires are approaching the town. It's a play. The book is set in a play. There's and it follows, I think, 2 or 3 women, I think 3 women, who are all watching the play. And the play is Happy Days by Samuel Beckett, which is for those who don't know, it's like a woman, and she's buried up to her waist in sand and just sort of like talking to the audience for the first act. And then in the second act, it's exactly the same, except she's buried up to her neck. And so, that obviously, it's Samuel Beckett, he's great. But there's that sense of impending catastrophe, and just living your life normally while catastrophe is happening all around you, and yeah, it just seemed like a really clever thing. I don't know, like, sometimes books are not as good as their premises, and sometimes premises lead to wonderful books, and sometimes even I think premises can actually carry a whole book. Like, I can think of a few books, probably, if I put my mind to it, where that has been the case. Anyway, I love the premise and I really want to read the book. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This is also something that I heard about on Eric's channel. Of course, I'll leave it linked below, along with Bob the Bookerers. And this was, what was it called? Sisters Mao? Yeah, The Sisters Mao by Gavin McCrae, not exactly sure. But yeah, Eric did such an amazing review of this book, which hasn't come out yet. I think it's September that it's coming out. I think his review would absolutely make anybody want to read it, but I think it felt like kind of specifically appealing to me because, I don't know, it's set in the 60s. It's split between a story involving Mao's wife during the Cultural Revolution, because she was an actor and she's in a performance there, and in London, where there's also some sort of radical art group, like doing performance art or something like that. And in London, of course, it's also like the sexual revolution, and it's just, you know, turmoil as well politically. And it's just like, I don't know, it's a time I'm interested in. Performance, radical performance is a thing I'm interested in. And the way that it sounds like it mixes the public and the private and the historical and the personal and makes them all connected together, it just sounds like my cup of tea. Number 5, biggest disappointment. There's actually been a lot of disappointments, unfortunately. And I can think of a few of them already. The Secret Garden by Francis Hodgson Burnett, or Burnett, maybe. The Hour of the Star by Clarice Lispector. The Light Keepers, which I finished recently, by, oh gosh, what was her name? Abby Jenny. Again, I'm probably ruining the pronunciation here. But yeah, that was quite disappointing. But there was one which was obviously, for people who watch this channel, far more disappointing than any of those, because I did a whole review talking about how disappointed I was because my expectations were quite high, and the actual book was much worse than anything else that I'd read. That I've read for this half of the year, and that was The Gathering by Anne Enright. So if you want to see me talk about my disappointments and what I thought like I liked and could be salvaged but was overall not a good reading experience at all, I'll leave a link somewhere, down there or up there or somewhere. Number 6, biggest surprise. This was The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I'd never read it before, and it's such a like monumental book in a way for how it's, you know, like kind of shaped the publishing industry and like shaped the imaginations of so many people. I was kind of just a little bit too old for that whole boom, but I was always a battle royale kid, so I kind of had a lot of strong feelings against the Hunger Games when it came out. I was like, nah, I'm too cool for that, and of course I've obviously gotten over them, and I finally read it, and I was really expecting, because I don't know, it's kind of existed in my imagination as this big book that I'd avoided for so long and that was so important. I kind of felt that it would do something, like either I would hate it or I would love it or I'd have really strong feelings, and I didn't. I just thought that was good. Felt a bit of its time, but it was a good book. There were lots of things I liked, some I didn't. So the fact that I didn't feel anything particularly strong was the surprise in that case. Number 7, favorite new author, either debut or new to you. One author who was both, it's her debut book and she's completely new to me, of course, is Kath Furla, who wrote Ghost Girls, which I really liked. It was a thriller. I've also talked about it before on this channel. I read it way back in January. It's about visa fraud, which doesn't sound so exciting, but it is, because it's about foreign students, especially from East Asian countries, who go to China on like kind of learning visas, student visas, and they end up like kind of getting roped into the sex trade, and then it's a case of mistaken identity, and not mistaken identity, yeah, like people pretending to be other people, and there's murder and there's suicide, and it gets all very dramatic, and it's really exciting. And also the main thing is that it explores these kind of issues which are so real and so like everywhere in society, and you know, as well as like being really international and about people moving around the world and globalization and stuff, which is really interesting for me, like the dark side of it. And also like Chinese food. There's so much Chinese food description, Sichuanese food especially, which I adore, and so it was just like a great book for me. Number 8, newest fictional crush. There's this student activist in Demons, and she's an incredibly minor character, but she just keeps turning up in like kind of big key dramatic scenes, and she's like kind of advocating for I think it's unionizing students, but at least kind of like connecting the students across Russia in some way. And whenever things get heated, she just sort of stands on a table and starts talking about how students are oppressed and how students need to band together so that they have rights and that they can, you know, not be mistreated and taken for granted anymore. And, you know, she's kind of like a really small character, which the writer is kind of making fun of, I think. But I just love that passion. I love that, like, that's her one note through the whole thing, but it never gets boring. So she was pretty great. I would like to meet her and go for coffee with her, definitely. And also The Hermit Crab from A House for Hermit Crab. After Eric Karl died, sadly, this year, I read a few of his books again, and The House for a Hermit Crab was one that I'm not sure if I had ever read to the end. I would like to be one of the limpets or mollusks or algae that attach themselves to hermit crab's shell, and they all sort of form this lovely little poly group together where they're all supportive of each other, and they, you know, he moves through the sea and then he grows and he's too big for the shell and he leaves it and goes to find another shell, and that would be fine. We would say our goodbyes, you know, and we would accept that, you know, relationships develop and then they end, and that's okay and natural. And then a new crab who is, you know, the right size and looking for a shell would come join us in our shell, and like anemones and crabs, and we'd all have this sort of like inter-shell communal affectionate group. So yeah, that's my crush, given that I'm an anemone or something like that. Number 9, newest favorite character. Shh, it's a secret. I'm not going to say, actually. I'm not going to say because, yeah, I was thinking about making a whole video just about my favorite new characters of recent times. So, yeah, you'll have to wait and see. Numero 10, the book that made you cry. The Song of Achilles. Is anyone surprised, though? Number 11, I'm going to stop doing the fingers things now for obvious reasons. Yeah, number 11, book that made you happy. So, I was thinking about this for a long time because pretty much everything I read was pretty grim, I think, and there were lots of positive emotions involved in the reading experience. Like I remember The Cure at Troy, I felt such kind of hope but tinged with melancholy at the end, and in Troilus and Cressida I felt like real joy and kind of glee at loads of those insults that Shakespeare was just throwing out, and it was really like, I guess, like kind of Schadenfreude kind of thing. But the word like happy, I think happiness, you have to have a sort of degree of satisfaction, don't you? At least I think happy is like content, you know, and I don't think that, you know, I got that feeling really. Plenty of books that gave me moments of joy, but I wouldn't say overall this is a happy book or this is a book which made me feel happy, if that makes sense. So yeah, nothing for 11, although I don't think that's terrible. Number 12, most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. So I've not bought any books this year so far, or received any for that matter, but the most beautiful book I've read is without doubt, I'm not sure what the Japanese name was, but in English it's Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. So this was a manga which I was so excited about for years, and I really didn't like it, unfortunately. It just wasn't for me, for lots of reasons, but the art style was what drew me to it, as well as the story. The story is, there's a Japanese ghost story about Hanako. She's a girl in the school toilets, and I don't know, there's variations, but basically like you knock on the stall and then she kills you or something. But yeah, just a ghost story. But in this one it's Hanako-kun, which is what you use for boys. So it turns out that Hanako is actually a boy. So it's got ghost stories, and it's a gender-bent ghost story manga with beautiful art, and like it sounded like the kind of thing I would really enjoy, and I didn't. There was loads of, I didn't enjoy it. But still, the pictures were amazing. I might even one day go back to the series just so that I can enjoy the art more. It's got all these like Showa era kind of little detailed pictures, and these really, like, I don't know, the character design as well. They've got kind of frayed edges around them, and everything looks exciting and interesting, and like it's, you know, belongs to a world full of stories, those kind of pictures. So yeah, I love the aesthetic, but I'm not going to go back to the series anytime soon. And ending on number 13, unlucky for some, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And the answer is 0. I don't have anything I need to read by the end of the year. I'm not a university student anymore. I don't have obligations when it comes to reading, and that feels great, to be honest. I will say that I would like to finally start Elena Ferrante this year if I can, which is what that book, My Beautiful Friend. My Beautiful Friend? My Beautiful Friend. My Beautiful Friend, yeah. So I would like to read My Beautiful Friend. And of course there's a whole bunch of books that I want to read quite soon, but we'll see how it goes. December 31st isn't a meaningful deadline for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all reading nice books, and please leave a comment to let me know what some of your answers to these questions would be, or what you thought of mine, or, you know, just do the whole tag yourself if you want. Yeah, you're all tagged. So yeah, see you later. Ciao.